The Denver Broncos. The 4-12 Denver Broncos that just fired their head coach Nathaniel Hackett last week after a beatdown by Baker Mayfield in the Los Angeles Rams have scored 24 points or more in 3 games this season. 2 of those games have come against the Kansas City Chiefs. Russell Wilson has had 2 games this year in which he's looked extremely competent. Both of those games have come against the Kansas City Chiefs. What is wrong with the Chiefs right now? Let's talk about it. My name is Josh Fan of ShowMeFootball.com and ArrowheadAddict.com, and I'm here to break down what just happened in this 27-24 narrow victory for the Kansas City Chiefs over the Denver Broncos at home on New Year's Day. Firstly, the Kansas City Chiefs' New Year's resolution of stop turning the damn ball over is not going well so far. It is off to a bad start. Turnovers continue to kill this team. They finally went a game without a turnover against the Seattle Seahawks, but they went right back to turning it over, which means the Chiefs now have a turnover in 10 of their last 11 games. And today, they had multiple turnovers, which is the first of several games this year they've had several turnovers. First, there was the Patrick Mahomes interception in the end zone to the Broncos' Justin Simmons. And that was one where you just got to look at Patrick Mahomes and say, dude, what the hell are you doing? What are you looking at there? And Patrick Mahomes just seems to, I guess, see ghosts when it comes to facing the Denver Broncos defense, because this happened the last time he faced the Denver Broncos defense. He just threw interceptions that he just should not have been throwing to defenders, that where the throws were not even close. I have to give Patrick Mahomes his credit, though, because besides that one interception, he was 29 of 42 for 328 yards and 3 touchdowns. And let's remember, he threw for 328 yards and 3 touchdowns, and we still barely skated by the Broncos today, which I think just further cements his case for MVP. I saw a Bills fan on Twitter tweeting the other day about how Mahomes isn't the MVP because, we barely beat the Texans, we barely beat the Broncos, we barely beat the Broncos again today. And it's like, okay, but are you looking at Mahomes' stat lines without him playing the way he has? And I know the turnovers have been frustrating, but still, without Mahomes, they aren't winning these games. How are the Chiefs winning these games without Patrick Mahomes? You tell me. Mahomes was otherwise surgical today. His leading receiver was Kadarius Toney, who had 4 catches for 71 yards. And then, of course, Kadarius Toney was the culprit for the second Chiefs turnover in this game. He fumbled the punt return. That just can't happen. And that is an indictment on Dave Toub and the way he's coached his unit. I mean, they've tried so many different guys. They've tried Sky Moore, McCole Hardman, Kadarius Toney. They still fumble. They got guys returning out of the back of the end zone when they shouldn't be. This is just a disaster for Dave Toub this year, and I think you seriously got to consider moving on, because this is very clearly a coaching issue. He coaches his players to do this. He does not hold his players accountable when they continue to turn over the ball. I mean, we saw how many times he put Sky Moore back out there, and I can understand to an extent, hey, we're going to go back to this guy just so his confidence isn't shot, and, we're going to give him another chance. Andy Reid and his staff have never been about, let's bench a guy right after a mistake, which is fine. But after it happens several times, at some point, you got to know when to stop. And then now it's a 50-50 shot whether or not the Chiefs can make a field goal or a point after attempt. Like, it is ridiculous. Honestly, you're at the point where you might as well just start going for 2 or go for it on 4th down, because you just cannot rely on this kicking unit. They suck right now. I don't care if it's Tommy Townsend. I don't care if it's Harrison Butker. I think there's blame to go all around. Dave Toub, again, he is still part of the problem. I think everyone shares a little bit of the blame. And I don't really care how you want to divvy up that blame. Point is, it's a problem. It's got to stop, or the Chiefs got to try something else. The offense ultimately did enough to get the job done in this game. I didn't love, though, how they were stalling out a lot. Patrick Mahomes was off on a lot of his throws today. Marquez Valdes-Scantling, in particular, was getting open all day, and Mahomes just kept missing him. And there were a couple plays where, on 3rd down, Mahomes just could not commit to whether he wanted to throw the ball or run the ball, and he would find himself stuck in the middle with a bunch of defenders in his face, and he had to take a hit that he probably shouldn't have taken, or he just had to go out of bounds or whatever, and the Chiefs punt the ball away. And that was really frustrating. And I think the Chiefs, Andy Reid, really botched the running game today, the way he handled that. Isaiah Pacheco only had 9 carries. He had 31 yards in those 9 carries. He had a touchdown today. He only averaged 3.4 yards per carry, but I don't think the Chiefs were giving him very much of an opportunity in this game. when you only rush for 46 out of your 374 total yards of offense, that's really unbalanced. And look, I'm not a huge proponent for run the ball. This team needs to run the ball more. But there's just some situations where it's like, look, you got to run the ball. Just run the freaking ball. You're good at it. Isaiah Pacheco is good. I can understand maybe a change in approach after Joe Thuney went down in this game because, Joe Thuney's a massive part of this running offense if you're going to be running the ball well. And he was injured in this game. He had an ankle injury. Hopefully everything is okay with him because the Chiefs are going to need him. But the Chiefs were 2 of 9 on third down in this game. That's not great. And I think part of the reason they turned the ball over in the red zone early in the game is because they just threw too many times. Like, not even a single rushing attempt in the red zone after getting to first and goal. Like, what the heck? And you know what? The defense did not play great in this game. But the offense is just not doing them any favors when they play the way they do. For example, when it was the fourth quarter, it was 27-17. You have a 10-point lead. Your lead should have been bigger than that to begin with, but you decided to turn the ball over. It's 27-17. You got a chance to close this game out. Russell Wilson rushes for a touchdown. Okay, 27-24. You got another shot to close this thing out. Just score a touchdown, even a field goal. The game's probably over. And instead, the Chiefs go 3 and out. I want to say if it wasn't 3 and out, it didn't last very long. Offense stalls out. They punt the ball back to the Broncos with about 4 minutes left. And the Broncos have a chance to chew clock and either get a touchdown or kick a field goal, tie this thing, and send it to overtime. And the Chiefs prayed and hoped that their defense would get a stop, and thank God they did. And you can thank none other than Chris freaking Jones for closing out the game. Did he get credited with a sack? I don't remember if he did. Yes, he did. He got credited with a sack. So a sack to close out the game, and that is Chris Jones' 13th sack of this season. Chris Jones probably won't win Defensive Player of the Year, but he deserves heavy consideration because he has been dominant all year long and one of the best defensive tackles. And you know what? He's been the best defensive tackle in the league this season. And the defensive line has actually taken a huge step forward down the stretch here. Colin Saunders had a sack today. George Karlaftis had another sack. What is this? His fourth or fifth straight game with a sack or something like that? Or, you know what? I don't think he had one against the Texans, but he's put together a nice stretch here. All of a sudden, he's up to 5.5 sacks on the season. And I've been tough on the guy because I said, I didn't love him as a pure pass rusher. You guys know that. I've been banging that drum. Like, hey, I'm not a big fan of George Karlaftis. I think he's a DN2 at best, but 5.5 sacks for a rookie, That's pretty dang good, and the season's not over yet. He has a chance to add one more against the Raiders next week. So overall, I'm really proud of this defensive line and the way that they've come together. Chris Jones can't do all of it. I've always said that. I think Chris Jones has always gotten an unfair amount of flack, and I'm probably going to make a video about that later this week, maybe potentially, because I saw some talk about trading Chris Jones and stuff, and I'm not going to address it in this video because that's a whole nother rabbit hole. But I'm proud of this defensive line. Chris Jones gets too much flack sometimes because he doesn't have enough help. Chris Jones is starting to get more of that help now. Carlos Dunlap was also dominant in this game. He forced that Russell Wilson interception caught by L'Jarius Sneed because he absolutely bullied his offensive blocker and just got right in the face of Russell Wilson and forced him to throw a bad pass that resulted in an interception. Carlos Dunlap has been an amazing addition to this team. So, yeah. I thought the secondary played relatively well, despite the fact the middle of the field continues to be really wide open for teams, and checkdowns to running backs for an automatic 5 or 6 yards seem to really kill this team. Just that middle of the field, really, it's just the Chiefs got to cover it better. I know Nick Bolton's not great in coverage. Darius Harris isn't much better, but you got to figure something out there. Maybe drop a safety a little bit lower or something and maybe sacrifice a little bit of security on the back end of your defense. But teams are just getting so many chunk plays over the middle of the field on this defense, and it's not good. Outside of that, I thought the secondary was okay. Joshua Williams, he had a rough day. Penalties and that one that was... Look, it was a little bit of a ticky-tack call on Jerry Jeudy, and it gave the Broncos a first down, where otherwise I think the game pretty much would have been over. But it's whatever, man, because the Chiefs also got a couple lucky breaks in this game. Cortland Sutton was called for an offensive pass interference, and honestly, I didn't really see it. Chiefs got lucky. Cortland Sutton barely touched Brian Cook, and they caught him for offensive pass interference. A couple ticky-tack calls in this one. I don't think the refs really swung the game in a huge way. Either way, I mean, those two calls were bad on both sides, but they pretty much, it's a wash at that point. I don't think the refs were a major factor in this game at all, though. I mean, look, there are things to like about this game, but myself, as well as many other Chiefs fans, are concerned about the way this team is playing. This is your, third or fourth game now out of the last 5 where you just played terrible and played down to your competition, kept teams in the game that just didn't deserve to be on the same field as you. I mean, the Texans, the Broncos twice. I mean, the Seahawks game was better, but it still kind of felt like the Chiefs let the Seahawks hang around for a little bit, and they really took a long time to get that third touchdown that they needed to essentially close out that game. The good thing about the Seattle game was that there were no turnovers, but now they're right back to the turnovers here in this game, and it's like 1 step forward, 2 steps backward with this team. And look, I know there's going to be people in the comments saying, oh, why are you complaining? They're 13-3, a win's a win. But come on, you're not being honest with yourself if you say that you are comfortable with this Chiefs team going to the playoffs with the way that they've been playing. Because if they play like this against the Bills, against the Chargers, against the Bengals, any team that they see in the playoffs, they could lose to anybody. If they play like this in the playoffs, they are going to get sent home. And we're going to say, we told you so. And the reason that they get sent home is going to be because the special teams is a disaster and they turn the ball over. They make stupid mistakes, and they play bad situational football. The Chiefs are the best team in the league when they play on it, but damn, when are we going to see it consistently? Because even though the Chiefs have won 13 games this year, it almost feels like we've seen a bigger sample size of bad football than good football. They're just able to win these games in the end. And the longer that they play like this, I mean, guys, we got 1 game left in the regular season. It's not like there's really much time left to clean it up or for them to prove that, hey, we can go a game without turning the ball over, because that's just what they become. That's who they are. They've done it in a majority of games this year. We got 1 game left in the regular season, and that's their identity. They turn the ball over. They're extremely talented. They have the MVP in Patrick Mahomes, who, by the way, threw for over 5,000 yards today in a season for the second time in his career, has over 40 total touchdowns for the season. But they constantly make stupid decisions, stupid mistakes that cost them games that they just simply shouldn't lose. I'm just happy that this team is 13-3 and still have a chance at the 1 seed, yes. And it's not like the Chiefs are the only team to have bad games this year. But what I don't like is that they're playing this way to end the season when typically you end the season strong going into the playoffs. But instead, there's a lot of questions left unanswered. There's a lot of points being left on the board by this Chiefs team. There's a lot of mistakes still being made that just shouldn't be being made at this point in the season. So enjoy this Chiefs win. Be happy that they won. But I advise you as a fan to hold this team accountable. Simply hold them accountable. Expect them to play better. Hold them to a higher standard because they should be playing better than this. We should not be in a dogfight with the 4-11 Broncos. Okay? That's unacceptable. You hold this team to a higher standard. So the Chiefs won. They're 13-3. Now we sit and wait for Monday Night Football, Bills and Bengals, and root for the Bengals because if the Bengals win and the Bills lose, the Chiefs will have possession of the 1 seed in the AFC. So we'll see, guys, but that's all I got for this one. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe so more Chiefs fans can find this. Make sure you check out my work on showmefootball.com and arrowheadaddict.com. Let me know in the comments what you thought of this one. I'll see you all in the next one. Go Chiefs!